I do think it's really cool that, that we're able to do this, because I saw you live at the Forward Mastermind. How many months ago was that? Like 4 or 5
October?
months?
Yeah.
4 or 5 months ago. And no offense to any of the other speakers, but you were on stage as a, how did he describe it? What Neil did is he wanted to give some folks that were a part of the program a chance to get on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had several people go up, and then you went up, and your content was probably the most valuable for me. Not only was it the most valuable, I'm talking like not just of that subgroup that was able to speak, I'm talking about the whole event. And so I pulled you aside afterwards, and I was like, we have to figure out how to get you on the podcast. And then no shit, like we're having the event here in Arizona. So I was like, oh, we got to get you. And so legit, for people who are listening, I DM'd you this morning and was like, hey, what time do you land? Because if you land before 2, we might be able to get a podcast. You're like, I land in an hour. Let's go. And so I think that just lends, your commitment to getting your word out and your message out. So I am here with Theoni, the lender, if you're looking for her on Instagram and on TikTok. She's also known as Not Your Daddy's Lender, which I think is so clever because you're 27. I hope you don't mind me saying that. We can edit it out if you do.
Yeah,
but
I'm 27.
I've been saying this for years, that those who are marketing today are going to be the lenders of tomorrow in an industry that is one of the most behind the spectrum from a digital perspective. Those who are going digital are winning. And there's dinosaurs in every community you go into. There's like these people have been in the lending industry that people know to go to them when a deal gets declined. It's like, go to this person, right? Everybody knows that person. Mm-hmm. But I've been saying this for years. It doesn't matter. Those guys are going to fade away because if you can capture the attention of the consumer through your phone, you're going to win, and you're proving this out. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thank you. This was awesome. I'm so excited to have this conversation today.
You're an inspiration to me. I'm 48 years old, and to see someone like you just crushing it, I'm like, man, I wish I had the technical skills that you have. And so, the Breakthrough podcast, I always introduce it this way, is about the breakthrough moments in life. And so everybody has that, water boiling at 212 degrees moment in their life when they finally get to the other side. And then when they get to the other side, then it's like, how do I get to the other side of that? And then there's people that just remain stuck. And there's somebody listening right now that's stuck. And so what I wanted to talk about a little bit with you today, I mean, there's a plethora of information that I wanted to tap into with you because you're doing so much, but it's really about that 211 moment, that 211 degree moment where it was just before you broke through, and the mindset that you had to change in order to break through. Do you have a moment that comes to mind when I mention that?
A couple.
Let's talk about it.
The first one, let's take it way back to the start of 2019 on TikTok. So I use TikTok as a platform because I like their editing better.
Okay.
So for the videos that I was producing at the time, which were a lot of like the trending audio voiceovers, it wasn't my voice, it was somebody else's, but that was the thing. So I used TikTok to edit videos to post on Instagram, but not knowing you have to post in order for it to get to your camera roll. So I was actually creating this entire feed on TikTok. I just didn't know that I was doing it really. I have 2 younger sisters, and the youngest at the time was in middle school, and she was like, Theoni, stop posting your mortgage stuff on TikTok. Like, no, people are dancing on here. Like, nobody knows what a mortgage is. Like, I need you to stop. And I was like, I like their editing. Like, get off my back. And so back then it was like proving it to myself and proving it to other people, even as silly as like my little sister, that people will listen. They're not here yet maybe, but they will get on this app, and this will be somewhere that they go to search, and especially the new generation. And so I remember I did that for a year. I posted videos on TikTok, and I just did it because, again, I like their editing, and I just kept coming back to it.
And you didn't care about number of views. You didn't care. You were just like, I'm just messing with the platform. Okay.
I'm just posting, and I was posting it, repurposing it to my Instagram, right? And at the time I had a totally different, it was Save Your Money with Theoni. And
That's actually
which
really
is kinda
good.
funny.
Yes.
Once I get too old for Not Your Daddy's Lender, I might have to get back to that.
I don't think you'll ever get too old for that.
But that's what I was posting before I realized that you have to combine your Instagrams. But it was for a purpose anyway. So I didn't feel like I was just posting for no reason because I was repurposing it. But it took me an entire year. And I remember, so 2019, 2020, January of 2020, I was so frustrated. It was one of those cold weeks in Delaware. I was in like a turtleneck, no makeup, 4 p.m. Friday. That entire week, I had the same conversation with people. People were like, what's a W-2? Where do I find that? Like, how many pay stubs do you need? And so I was frustrated. And I was like, I need to just make a video of me speaking for the first time ever on TikTok. And I need to tell people to get their shit together and like open up your desktop, have a folder, and start throwing tax returns and personal things if you want to buy a house. So I said, if you want to buy a house this year, here's what you need to know, and here's what you need to have together. And that video was posted at 4 p.m. I was at the grocery store at 6 p.m. In 2 hours, I was getting blown up on my email because at the time you couldn't have a link. I didn't have a landing page. I didn't have a lead capture. Like, I was not in it to go viral, right? I was there to repurpose the content to Instagram. And so when that happened, I was at the grocery store and I'm getting all these emails like, can you help me from TikTok? Help me please buy a house. Are you taking on new clients? Like all these things in the subject line. And I was like, holy shit, people are on this app. Like they're on the app and they understand what a mortgage is and they need my help.
I'm getting chill bumps as you're talking about
It's
it because
crazy.
that's the definition of breakthrough.
Yeah.
You were pissed off.
I was just mad.
And that's what they say. There's a breakdown that happens before the breakthrough. And it's like you're just sick of it. And let's be real. I mean, you were really just, this isn't a life-shattering situation that made you angry. It was an annoyance.
Yeah.
But through that annoyance, you were like, I have to find a more efficient way to do this. And then boom, you blow up.
And it was the worst production of a video. I'm talking like I had a ring light and everything. And for those watching, I literally propped my phone up to my little tiny laptop and just propped it up with like this angle in a turtleneck. And like I'm just talking to the phone and it's just me like chopping up. And it was the first time I ever did a video talking.
How many views?
Oh my gosh. I think it got, at the time, like 350,000 views. And I got so at the time I was working for a bank. So you could either go to my email or people, I'm shocked, but people found my email through that because it would pop up, They took my email, I guess, and went to like my bank's profile and just started applying because I was licensed in all 50 states.
What bank, if you don't mind me asking?
The Federal Savings Bank.
Okay, got it, okay.
I got 225 applications in 24 hours.
225
applications. And it was the weekend, right? Because it was a Friday that happened. So during that weekend, I was up till like 3 every night just trying to figure out how to even, like, it sounds great, right? But in reality, and this is what I talked about at Forward, I wish somebody would have told me, have a way to organize all this. Because I was just overwhelmed. Like I didn't have a team. I was 22 years old. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. You know what I mean? So I was like, wow, this is really great. I have all these leads. People are literally giving me their social security numbers. I'm not even talking to them. But what do I do? Like, what's the timeline of these people? Are they even under contract? Are they looking this year? Are they looking tomorrow? And so it was just a lot going on. And I honestly didn't capture a lot of business from it because how could you? It was so much. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't have a CRM to put them in. I didn't have I didn't have the back end. And that's why I think it is so important to start with the back end before you do the content, because you never know which video it is that is going to click like that.
That's so important. I mean, so many people, the one thing that surprised me about our industry, even the real estate industry, is how many people are doing content with no CRM because they don't realize that they could blow up that way. But just even in their business, I mean, there's people in the industry for 20 years that don't have a CRM. They don't have it. And I'll talk to them. They're like, no, I keep it all up here. No, you're going to forget. And there's just no way to handle it. So which CRM do you use? Do you love?
So it's a version of Go High Level. So my husband's in real estate marketing.
Okay.
He owns Azure iMedia. So him and his team have actually devised an entire back end system. And it's really cool because I am someone who's like, I want this landing page. and I don't know how the fuck we're going to get there, and he was like, okay, great. And he puts it all together. So I tried so many different ones that now I work with Annie Mac. I've tried all the ones that they have. It just doesn't mesh for, honestly, our industry is growing, but it's not for influencers, and Encompass is not for people who go viral yet. Right.
Yeah. We have, I work at a lender as well. One of the hardest things that I realize is that most companies are really good once they become an application. And then the CRM can kind of take it from there. Like, they'll milestone, they'll do this, but there's not a really great post-closing cadence. But the most important cadences are going to be before the customer applies.
Right.
And when that customer is just a contact through, a post, how do you incubate them for the next 6 months that you're going to need to incubate them before they become a deal? And I don't think any lender has really figured that out. I hope we're the first, but nobody's really figured that out because everybody's just trying to think of milestones like, oh, your appraisal's back, or we got final approval. Like, nobody, I don't care about that. If anything, I'm okay picking up the phone for that.
Yes.
It's how do you do the front end? So you create it. So if I watch your TikTok and I like you and I DM you, what happens then? Walk me through like what in your system.
On TikTok is very different because we don't have the ability for many chats yet on there. So I wish I did, but I can't. So on TikTok, I send everybody to my landing pages or my links pages. So depending on what the video is about, let's say it's, we'll bring this topic up, the refinance, which I did last April. And for a whole month, I saw that rates were going to go up and eventually they were going to come back down, but we were heading on the up and up. So I made a video about if you're buying a house and your interest rate is high, this, that, and the other, go to my links page and fill out a refi form and be added to my refi list. And I'll let you know when the best time.
You hit the money.
Yes. And so they'll go to my links page and they will fill out that form. And then in my CRM, they'll be categorized into a drip campaign for that. So I don't spam people. Like I'm very big on that. And I even text them and I'm like, hey, it's Theoni here. I don't spam you. Like, even when I ask for their phone numbers, in parentheses, I say, I do not spam or like sell your information. This is not some big corporation. It's just for me. And so
you have to say that.
You have to.
You have to say that.
Because everybody's giving their numbers away. And how many emails do you get in a day from what corporation and what company, right? It's crazy. So once they get that, they usually respond with something like, thank you so much. This is really cool or whatever. And then they get an email and it just says like, hey, you're in. Blah, 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 blah.
You're in. Now you made me feel like,
that's all it says.
You made me feel like I'm a part of an exclusive group. So, okay. So there's so many lenders that are probably listening to this right now, but what you did was you made a post or several posts to your community of people that are watching you. And by the way, you said most of your stuff is just hitting not even your audience sometimes, right? So you're hitting new audiences saying, if you bought a home,
or if you will buy a house
and you're going to buy at a high rate, get on my exclusive list because I'm going to call you when rates go down.
Yeah.
And to the consumer, it's like, wait, she's doing me a favor.
Yeah.
Right. And you are.
I am.
But nobody thought about doing that. I mean,
back then when everyone was scrambling, when everyone was freaking out.
So how big did your list get?
I think I'm at 375.
You have 375 customers that are waiting for Theoni the lender to call.
Yeah.
To explain to them why you're not their daddy's lender.
Yeah.
And give them a better rate when rates drop.
Yeah.
In a way that their lender didn't.
Yeah, and a lot of them, I'll be honest, was new construction, so I couldn't touch them anyway. And honestly, I tell people, if you're going to get a ton of money for credit and they're going to give you this low rate, they're never going to call you. Like those new construction lenders will go with the new construction builder onto the next project, and they're not going to call for the refi. So a lot of them are new construction because they had a terrible experience with their lenders.
They're not allowed to call.
I'm sure they're not. Yeah,
they're not allowed to call. I didn't even know that. Yeah, we have a big JV business. I think we ended up being like the largest builder, like because we partner with builders to do lending, right? My retail guys hate it because if it's one of those communities, we can't touch it because there's going to be somebody doing that deal for 40 basis points in order to give the deal the deal some skin in it for the consumer. And but because we become friends with them, they're like, here's my pipeline because I can't touch the refis. And so we're just waiting as well. But I thought that was so smart what you did. So what are like, let's go back to the TikTok stuff, because what I feel is happening in our industry right now is there's this shift. There's so much movement. There's so much, creative marketing happening. People are moving from, banks to retail, from retail to brokers. There's just, everything is kind of in this weird state. By the way, like I want to say like 40 to 50% of the loan officers didn't even renew their licenses. So what's happening is the market, the head count in the market is shrinking, because I did feel like we were oversaturated. And when this market turns, everybody's going to have a really good opportunity to make a run for it. So how did you, and today, what's your commitment to social media right now? Like when you look at your week, how do you plan out your week and to include the creative piece of I need to create content?
Yeah. So this is two parts. For my TikTok, it's very easy because it's inspirational for me. It'll be things like I get off the phone with a client and I have 3 minutes to make a TikTok, and something that they said triggered, oh my gosh, I need more people to know about this. I need more people to know that we have, if it's 2 applicants, it's the lowest credit score, and I make a video about that. So my TikTok is it's not scripted at all. It is, I post less now, also because it's been overwhelming how many leads I've gotten the last couple months, which is crazy to even say out loud, because that was like not ever a place I thought I'd get to. But I post less on there because it's more about people feel your content and feel like the authenticity that comes through, and especially on TikTok. And so I think that type of content can't be scheduled. With my Instagram, it's a little bit different. So we do have a videographer on the team that I'm on, and he comes in once a month and we rip 4 different, not scripts, they're really just like inspiration. And then I have to talk to him about it even before. Like I can't read off a script, and I'm like, okay, what was the moment? Like, how did I feel when this happened? And then I can kind of create my own script off of it. Those are more of me sitting down in the office and talking to have that kind of content.
Yeah, it's a shoot.
That. Right, it's a shoot.
Yeah.
I think you definitely need both, because that offers credibility and it offers me a different type of customer that feels more comfortable reaching out when I make those types of videos than the like, she's my best friend and she's just like someone who can do mortgages on TikTok.
Yes.
So I don't really have that much structure, I would say. And that's what I love about social so much, is like, it doesn't have to be this thing you check off on your list for the week or for the day. You can truly incorporate it in your life, and then it becomes like what you do every day.
Well, so let's talk about that, because I think people, you talk about it in a way that I think you assume everybody knows, but there's people that just simply don't know this, right? So you're on a phone with a client and they ask you a question that you're like, how do you not know this? Or, I'm explaining something that seems so trivial, but then you realize this is a question I'm getting all the time. Mm-hmm. And so then you hang up with a client and you're inspired by something that you now have content for. And so what's your process? You pick up your phone, you go to TikTok, and you just talk. You're talking to the camera.
Yeah.
But you do it in a way that you're their best friend. And that's the key that I think a lot of people miss, because I catch myself doing this, especially on Instagram, where the moment the camera goes on, I'm talking to an audience. Mm-hmm. So I'm almost shouting sometimes, like, I'm like, hey guys, we're going to blah, 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 right? And I don't say, hey guys, but that's what I'm hearing in my head, right? I'm talking to a bunch of people, and I have to remind myself, you're only talking to one person. You're talking to the one person that's your best friend that you want to connect with. And that's how I coach people. It's like, tell me, like, if you were at a bar and you were excited about this idea and we were sitting next to each other, how would you tell me that?
Or frustrated.
Right? Or frustrated, right? Like, but get the emotion in there. And so how do you psych yourself up? Or is it this point you just know? Like, what is your process?
So I think that when you're on TikTok, you have to come up with a really strong hook, just like anything, but TikTok for sure. Because if you're going to be lax, your message has to be really good. Like, my production on TikTok is not great. It's not anything. I don't use ring lights, and I don't really have the best. Like, it doesn't have to be the best.
They have the best filters, man.
They do. They have great filters. I don't use a lot of them,
just their normal camera.
I
look amazing on that.
Awesome.
Like, I'm like, this is great. Yes.
So what I like to do is, if I can think of the hook, then the rest of the video is super easy for me because I chop it up, right? It's not a one take thing. People actually like to see that you physically stop the video to then pause, take a break, be like, okay, I just talked about this, and now like, okay, I'm going to lead into this, and then you get back into it. And so because of the choppiness, I'm like, this is so much easier than shooting this whole thing.
It's a weird thing with the cadence of the stopping.
Yeah.
It's almost like a beat.
Yeah.
And
people like it, and they can
I
follow
like it. Yes,
easier.
I agree. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So then I think if I can come up with my hook, and my hook, my mom is my best friend. My hook is, what would I say to my mom if I had to tell her about this conversation?
Okay, so let's do this real quickly, because the hook is a language, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's learning a new language. Neil figured this out really well with his hooks. And sometimes for inspiration, I'll go through and listen to his hooks.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to come up with something. And what is your formula for coming up with a hook? Like if you were going to talk about being here today in this podcast, let's talk about, like, if you were going to tell your mom about the hook, like, what do you get me to want to watch that video? Maybe that's not a video you would do, but actually we were outside talking to a group of people just now, and they were trying to do a video on a teleprompter.
Yeah.
Hook me on that.
Like you want me to talk about just the fact that somebody was...
Well, or just like, maybe teleprompter is not the way, or, something that you would hook this into. And by the way, what I'm trying to get to is a subject that you can formulate a hook to that is this language that I don't think a lot of people understand.
Yeah.
So we want the audience, let's structure it this way. I want the audience to know that it's okay not to read off a script, and that people like jump cuts, right? So what's the hook to that?
For me, it would have to be something like really raunchy and raw.
Okay, that's
what works.
Yeah. So so this is funny because you said raunchy.
Yeah.
Immediately, my ears perked up. What is raunchy about video content?
Right.
Right. But you hooked me.
Yep.
With that word.
Yeah.
So talk about that.
And that's like, that is the one thing. Mortgages are so boring. They are so boring. So for us to get on social media and talk about mortgages, like, no one cares about FHA programs at 3.5 down. Don't be Google. So I tell people, like, I need it to be, you have to add spice to it. And it has to be whatever that means. Like, don't fake it. If curse words aren't your thing, clearly I've dropped a couple already. Like, they're my thing. But if they're not your thing and you force it, don't. But the hook, I think, is where people, if you want to test it out, that's where you do it.
Yeah.
And so it can be something like, teleprompters are for dinosaurs, or teleprompters are for daddy's lenders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And people are like, what is she talking about? Like,
and now I want to know what you mean.
Make something boring and add a word in there that is so extra almost that people are like, what is she about to tell me?
That right there is a clip.
Yeah.
I mean, that is so good, because somebody described it as when you're standing in line at the grocery store and you look at the magazine rack, the words that jump out of your lies, cheated, raunchy, those words stick out on the pages of those magazines, and those are the words you want to figure out how to implement to grab eyes. Mm-hmm. But then you also have to be authentic.
Correct.
So I want to move into the masterclass, if you will, of TikTok, right? Yeah. So you have this formula of how to go viral on TikTok. Talk to us about that. Like, what are the steps?
Yes. So the first thing, like I mentioned earlier, is you want to make sure you have a back end set up, right? Because that's number one. When you set up a plan and your goal is to get views/leads, views don't make you money, leads do at the end of the day. But, in order to get the leads, you need the views. You have to have something set up in the back end, which will actually push you. Now that I have a system set up, we can talk about this later, but my second breakthrough moment was right before my system was set up, and I was trying to go viral again because I was losing followers. I was stuck at 70,000 for so long, and that was the big jump to where I'm at now. But
how far did you go down from 70?
No, I went down to 7. I was at like 85.
Oh yeah, so you're just like,
I had a
what's
baby.
Happening? Yeah, I'm losing
stopped.
it.
Yes, I was like, I'm losing it, and it was cool, right? Because I was bad at it again, and I think people forget that even people who are in it like me, and I love it so much, I will have seasons where I kind of want to be a beginner again. Yes. And it was a weird time. It was last November of 22. And so it was a weird time because it was, again, like proving to myself I can do it. Mm-hmm. But it was a totally new TikTok. So this is where I came up with the format, and I still didn't have a back end, but I was building one and I had a lot better than what I had before.
Yes.
So definitely making sure that you do that. Your hook is the one thing. And then you want to post as much content as possible, like 3 times a day. And that's not because, actually 2 things. One, because you can prove it to yourself and you become a different person after you can do 3 times a day on TikTok about whatever. After a week, you're almost an expert of doing that. And then the second one is when that video does eventually go viral, you want your content to be bingeable. You want people to be able to binge your stuff, and you have to have stuff for people to binge it. So it's not going to be your first video. You don't want it to be your first video. You don't even want it to be your 10th video. You want it to be like your 20th or 30th.
Because you want enough to go back to.
Exactly. You want people to keep scrolling and being like, what does this chick talk about? A lot of times when my videos go viral, even when they don't, all of my views on my entire view count on my page is always up because people are scrolling my previous videos. They want to see more stuff. And that's why now they have playlists that you can binge through. And so you have playlists on TikTok, and the analytics tell me like which playlist people are interested in. And so I think that you just have to pour out that content so that people can binge it. It's just like a Netflix show. You know, you watch one episode and you're like, I'm hooked.
Yes.
I gotta watch all of them.
Yes.
And so make your content that way.
So good. Yes.
But you have to post the content. And then third is find a niche in that, just like anything. And for me, it was first time home buyers, and find your keywords. And so on the actual video,
this is probably the most important piece, in my opinion,
Yes.
from what you've talked about.
because Sean Kaplan did it
Yes.
while we were sitting.
Yes,
at
while
that.
we're sitting there, and he went massive viral
Yes.
on that deal.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my guys reposted it and cut him out, and I was literally still in the mastermind, and I was like, bro, you need to give Sean some credit for this one, because he blew it up and took Sean's name out of
no.
And I was like, you can't do that.
No.
Like, and I'm sitting right next to the dude.
Oh my
you know?
gosh,
Yeah.
content jail
Yeah,
immediately.
exactly. So, okay, keep going. So this is good. This is important.
Yes. So TikTok it's a search engine, right? I think last year it beat Google. So it wants to categorize your videos. So in order to help it categorize your video, you have to tell it what it's about. So on the actual screen itself, and I wish I had like a way to show it, but I hope that I can talk through
when
it.
we do the YouTube, if we can, Fabio, it'd be cool to do like the back end screen, what she's talking about, but we'll try it.
Yeah. Okay. Before you post it and before you put your caption, you have the ability to add text on the screen. So any text that you add on the screen is able to be moved off the screen, right? So you can start typing in what your video is about there. So things like what I do is first time home buying. It's really redundant. How to buy a house, things that people would search, right? First time home buyer tips. How to buy a house as a first time home buyer. Like anything you can think of that is a version of what your video could be about and who it can serve. You type all that in and then you slide it off the screen. And that's how TikTok will be able to categorize your video. And
because the algorithm, I mean, the system doesn't realize that you're off the screen. It just knows that it's being utilized. The tool for search is being utilized. So it's scrubbing it.
Right.
And you're able to, like, I don't know if you remember this, but websites a long time ago, at the end of the website, people would just put all the keywords that would give them SEO. And that's basically effectively what you're doing, is putting it all on the screen and then wiping it off.
Exactly. And then you know it's working. It won't work right away because you have to give TikTok some time to show it to enough people, and then it does its thing and it thinks about what your video's about. But after a day, it'll show in the little search engine on top. If your video is categorized, it'll have what the category is. And if it's not, it'll say like search things like this or something like that. It just won't categorize it. So then it's just not pushing it out to people because it doesn't know what the heck your video is about. And that's like the biggest key.
So that one is the biggest. And when you figured that piece out, how did it change your business?
I became highly selective.
Okay.
Which is really interesting. I used to be the lender that was open to everything. I was a yes person. I was like, I want to help as many people. And coming from a bank, I could. I was licensed in all 50 states. When I figured out that change was possible and I could be more selective, this actually probably could be another breakthrough. But I allowed myself to like take a step back and be like, you know what? I don't want to work on 580 credit scores at 10% down because I'm not the right lender for that. And there are other lenders, multiple other so many other lenders that is their bread and butter and they love it. And I love this person. And this person is a person who is under contract or almost about to be. And they are just working with a shitty lender and they just need better guidance. And whoever that persona is, it's a pain point for me. It's not a person so much. It's like, that's the pain point. Like, I know I'm qualified and I just need better service and I'm not getting it. I'm not getting the answers I want. So that's when I started switching and I was like, maybe I can make content on loan estimate sheets and teach people loan estimate sheets. And that's when I was like, holy shit, I got in a month, I posted a video last August and in a month I got like 300 loan estimate sheets to review. And I told people if I could do better, like, would you switch with me? Or if I could provide you service. And some people were happy to just talk to me because their lender wasn't even responding. And I was like, I figured out that you can actually be this selective and it's okay. Like, it doesn't sound like a dick to say that.
No, it's understanding who your avatar is.
Yeah, or their pain points, right? Because I think that there's demographic and then there's pain points. And I think that pain points, you can be any age, you can be any demographic if you just know the pain point.
Ah, that's very interesting. That's the clip too. It's you are focusing on the pain point of this individual that you know how to solve the pain point.
Yeah.
Versus focusing on what we all talk about as the avatar,
right?
Which is a demographic.
Yep.
That's super smart.
Yeah. I used to think it was like a 25-year-old girl, and I actually don't like them. They usually have dad's money, and dad's money wants you to shop at a bank. So like, honestly, it's not them. Yes. And so when I started switching that, I was like, whoa, it's actually people in their 30s and people in their 50s buying a house for the first time.
That's like a breakthrough moment.
Yeah.
Like right now, right now, that blew my mind. It's not the avatar, it's the pain point. I love that.
Yeah.
That is really good. So how does your audience relate to you? Meaning, let's say you have, is there a certain demographic that you have to overcome when you're dealing with people that are finding you online? Because one thing I noticed about TikTok is the trolls are harsher there. I love them. But you gotta love them, right? I mean, but it's because we're gonna go to mine in a second. But my TikTok, I'm posting and not paying attention because I'm like, if we're going to do it here, may as well do it there, right? Unlike you're like, this is where it's at, and I'm going to go ahead and post over there too. Mm-hmm. But no attention to detail on it whatsoever. But every now and again I'll pop in and I'm like, I got all these comments, and then I'll go through and I'm like, these people are mean. Like, it's crazy. It doesn't bother me. I love it. But tell me how the trolls but have you had people that want to do business with you and are kind of in a troll or kind of rude to you as well? And how do you handle all that?
Yeah. So one thing about trolls is that usually they're either having a bad day or they're having a bad life. And so when you call them out, usually they're really quick to come into your inbox and be like, I am so sorry. Like, I didn't think you were going to read that. And it's crazy to me that people,
what do you say that gets them to say that?
I shout them out on my Sad Boy Hours playlist. I have an entire playlist designated to these trolls. I call them sad boys. And so I'm like, Sad Boy Hours. So I shout them out and I enhance their comment. And it'll be like, you don't ever need a realtor or a lender, or who are you to be, like, people call me a realtor all the time. And so I love those ones because I'm like, I'm not a realtor, I'm just a lender. Like, very different here. Or I don't know, people have told me like I should get a real job and I'm going to be out of a job soon. And I'm just like searching for anywhere I can get people scammed and all this stuff. So once you highlight it and then I make a video about it, and in a very sarcastic manner, like, I almost agree with them, right? And then they're so confused. And then by the end of the video, they're like, wait a second, I just got roasted. And I didn't even know. But it highlights, like, I'm reading the comments. Like, I am in my comment section. And then they're pretty quick to go to my DMs and be like, listen, I'm so sorry. I just had like a really terrible day. Or they have a terrible experience with another lender or another realtor, or somebody did piss them off or do them dirty in the past. And I've done videos about that. Yes. I get it. We were scumbags at one point. Like, we could do business dirty, so we did. Yeah. And so that's a whole generation that now has kids who are buying a house telling them lenders and realtors are schemy.
Yes.
And so I get it, because when you teach people different things, they don't want to be taught. So then they get angry. And they're like, no, this is not how it is. It used to be like this, and this is how it still is. So
I love this. What did you do before lending?
nothing. This is all I've ever done.
This is all you've ever done.
Yep. I got into college, and this is all I've done.
Well, it's interesting because you said something that I latched onto is you said we did do bad things. And as a, you know, there was a point in time where I was a little bit ashamed to tell people what I did because I lived through, you know, all the bad things that we had done as lenders. But because I didn't do it, I never associated myself with it. But you own it. You're like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm a part of this profession. And it's almost like if you were a lawyer, you're like, there's our industry, you know, chases, you know, ambulances, right? So
Yep.
like, but I do think that you own it, and I just think it's an interesting thing, because I feel like you're like, once you own it, you now know how to overcome it. Mm-hmm. But you're not that type of lender. I mean, most of us aren't, and there's so much regulatory oversight that we couldn't even if we wanted to, right? So no, I love this. So okay, so I want to do something fun, and I hope we can figure out a way, Fabio, that we could do this live and like maybe post it. But can you open up your phone and go to my TikTok?
Yeah.
And then you're gonna roast me on how bad it is. But this is what's going to inspire me and Fabio to go hard on TikTok.
Okay.
Because I get no views.
What is your handle?
The Chris Medellin? Yeah, the Chris Medellin. I don't even know my handle, but yeah. And here's well, actually, I'm not going to tell you anything. I'm going to let you, and then I'm going to tell you why I'm asking. But I think this is what a lot of people want to understand, all the mistakes that they're making so that they can get better.
The Chris. Okay, here you are. You have 431 followers. That's great. Oh my gosh, how rude. I'm not following you back. I just did. Don't be mad at me, okay?
I literally started following you yesterday.
I guess if my stuff just pops up on your For You page all the time.
It did, but that's why I thought I was following. I was like, how am I not following her? But I think it was from it. Because I go to Instagram first for everything.
Yeah.
So I'm not of the TikTok generation, although I consume a ton of it.
Actually, I'll tell you just off the cusp while I'm like looking. All of these ways that you're like labeling your videos are not TikToks.
I noticed that on yours.
Yeah.
So if I go to yours, you're using
TikToks.
Platform to, okay.
Mm-hmm. So that's one thing, because it tells me that like you don't actually give a shit enough to
use TikTok.
And
I would look better too if I use TikTok. So number one, if you're repurposing content into TikTok and you're not using their platform, it's most likely going to hurt your algorithm.
Yeah.
Okay. Or hurt the algorithm that's going to give you views.
They want you to use their stuff. Yeah.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm. So I think what I would do is I think what I'm going to test, and you've inspired me on this, is I'm going to just start talking. I'm going to come up with a hook, and then I'm going to talk, and then we'll take that same content, and he and I will do videos like Fridays, and we'll do like 10 in a day.
Cool.
And then we can use those for Instagram because they're more scripted and more professional looking, but I'll test the raw stuff during the week live on TikTok and test that.
And I also think if you're going to do that, in your bio on TikTok, people want, just similar to Instagram, people want to know like not just who you are, because I know it says real estate investor, speaker, mortgage leader, Loan Depot VP plus mentor. Like, how can you help them?
How do I help them?
Why should you only have your Instagram here, so you don't have your website. So like, how do I reach you? Why should I look into you? Mm-hmm. What are you going to help me with?
Okay.
Like, why should I stick around on your
love
page?
that. Yeah. So keep going. Like, I want to know everything. Like, this is good.
Let's see.
So, okay. So what she's told me so far is that if you go to my Instagram, and hopefully we could show this onto YouTube, but I'm not using their platform to do my videos. I'm recording them and then posting them. We're certainly not doing the stuff that you were talking about with pushing off so if you go to like one of my videos, it'll just say find related content.
All of it.
Because
so it's not
it doesn't know how to categorize me. That's hurting my views. Mm-hmm. And then And then the last thing is make sure that people know how I can help them and how to contact me.
Yeah. Or just say, if you have a link, just say like, I think mine says, get started on owning a home. Yeah. Tap link to get started on owning, and then a little home emoji.
I love that. Okay. And then so tell me, okay, so let's see. Okay. And then how are these videos? They do well on Instagram, but they clearly don't do well here, but it's just like some B-roll.
B-roll doesn't do well on
Doesn't
TikTok.
do well. So just cut those out.
Yeah.
Don't even post those. Okay.
I wouldn't even. TikTok's become a space where, have you heard of the big one that actually just went viral? Who the fuck did I marry?
No, this is so good. So it's just, you just see, it's almost like the one that's like, of course I'm Latino.
Similar,
right? Okay.
But it was a lady who also didn't think she was going to blow up, talking about a 50-part series of how she found this guy on Tinder and all this stuff happened. And actually they try to buy a house. And so a lot of these real estate people, me included, are taking advantage of the fact that now everybody knows this lady who blew up, telling her story about like the craziness that she just endured with this guy she married that was a total liar. And she's like in her car talking about it, and she makes a 50-part series. And now people are binging it. And like in a economy of consumer attention, that's a lot of minutes. Like these minutes are almost 10 minutes, or these videos are almost 10 minutes long.
Yes.
And she's grasped their attention so much that now she's gone viral. So something like that, it's like the storytelling, and it's not production, and it's not her trying to get anywhere. She's just trying to add value so that no one else gets screwed over by some guy on Tinder, basically. And so all these women are like, I'm going to check my husband's W-2s. Like, I'm going to go into his job and make sure he's actually employed. Like, all this crazy stuff happens.
This is crazy.
But something like that, like, it's all about the storytelling. So B-roll doesn't tell a story.
That's a good point.
So it's like, why you're just going to, unless you're like some really hot chick at the gym, honestly, or you live this amazing life and you're like going on all these cool places and adventures, like those are the types of B-roll that ever really make it. B-roll that provides information is more for Instagram, because you're building a community. It's way more like nurturing on Instagram. That's why I say TikTok is my lead gen, and that's where I send everybody is to my Instagram to like nurture that community. Whoever wants to follow me. I'm not saying all 160 should. I'm okay with them being leads and me just helping them buy a house and it not be super personal, because I still get personal on my TikTok, but my Instagram is really where I foster the community.
Absolutely. I love that you have this down. I mean, you go viral, you have a process now.
Yeah.
And so how many leads a week do you think you're pulling in?
Just in the last 2 weeks, I think it was 175 off of 3 videos.
So if you look at your business as a whole, last 12 months, how much was TikTok? How much was referral? How much was realtor? How much was, word of mouth?
I'm probably just under that 50-50 split with both. Like half-ish comes from TikTok.
So time that you think you spend a week on content,
oh my
like
gosh,
producing.
It feels like nothing, because you get to a point where it's like so engraved in what you do. Like, how many times were you on the phone this week?
Exactly, right? Yeah.
You're like, it was part of my job. I just did what I had to do. I don't know. I mean, I'm down to 2 videos a week minimum now, like barely. Sometimes I only do 1. And that's what I tell people. You'll go into these content sprints. Like when I know I need more leads to convert more, I go on my mini content sprints. I'll post every day. I'll post every day on Instagram, and I post every day on TikTok. You are a beginner again. But then once you get it, and once you're good and you have people who follow you and you have your community down and you want to shut it off, you can go down to 1 to 2 videos. And it's almost relieving to tell people that in the beginning of their journey, because you don't have to do this shit forever. It's not the hustle of like every day click posts. Like, I think you should show up on your stories every day. That's very different. But the actual content creating piece of it, you can actually get to a point where you're posting 1 to 2, maybe just 1 a week. And people are still like, how do you show up every week? Because that's me now. And I'm like, I really don't post that much on my feed. It's just that I'm consistent on my story.
You're consistent.
And I've been consistent, and I do these content sprints when I know I need more leads for the conversion.
The commitment, you have such a high commitment that it feels like you're spending, we did a a podcast with somebody who said they're an attorney. They said they spent 40% of their time creating content. I mean, an attorney, right? 40% of their time. And you were saying, and I think you get, by the way, you have far more leads and far more, that you're gaining from what you're doing, and followers, all in. But I think it's crazy to think that this is second nature for you, because I think what I watch the most of yours is your stories. Mm-hmm. You do really good, and you're funny. Like, I think that's really I
really appreciate that.
No, really, you really are funny. And so it's why I consume it. So, was there a number 5, by the way? Did we get to number 5 on your top 5 things that you need to do with TikTok? Before I move.
Yeah, that was it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then I want to know, we were talking a little bit about this before, but where do you go to from here? I mean, because you've mastered the marketing side, and you will say I didn't, but there are a handful of lenders out there that can do what you were doing. You just said, if I need to get leads, I know what to do. There are loan officers right now that work with me that are saying, I can't get a lead to save my life right now because the market is so bad, yet you are able to find leads. And then on top of that, you're able to find leads that have the pain points that you want, that you can be very selective on who you want. That is a master power that most, or superpower that most people don't have in the market that we're in. So where do you take this to next? What's your next step in the industry or in your career? What do you want to be doing?
So I first want to backtrack really quick, because when you said something, it just triggered. I've said multiple times through this bad market, because I got into the industry when I was 18 years old. And so I've seen it kind of, but nothing, crazy. It's just been this, and then it got great, and now it's terrible. So through building my brand, I've realized that my personal brand doesn't give a shit what the market does. So when people are like, how's your loan business going with the rates? And I'm like, great, people are buying and selling every day, and I find them and they find me because I have a personal brand. So when people say I can't get a lead because of this market, well, you'll never get a lead for any market. And then you're going to feel like shit when the market's great and you're still not getting leads.
Still not getting leads.
So it's, you just have to remind yourself that as you're building this personal brand, you're building it to have the resilience through any market. So that when this happens again, and then we have the boom, and then we have the collapse, or whatever happens, you're still getting the business because you've built this brand that can resist through all of it. But I think what's next, I honestly still right now do love the loan side of things. We joked earlier and we said, you can't love a 1003 forever, which I do believe is true. But as of right now, I'm still very much in my files, and it really shocks some people when I'm the one from TikTok calling them.
Yeah, because it's celebrity-like at this point.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I'm like, you don't feel it. When you're creating this content, you're behind a phone, right? It's not like you're in front of an audience or on stage, so you don't actually see these people.
Has anybody recognized you at the airport yet?
Not at the airport, but locally, at a couple places, I've gotten free desserts.
That's pretty dope.
And they're like, you're Theoni the lender. And I'm like, yeah, I like chocolate. So if you have chocolate ice cream, I'll take it. But no, not at the airport yet. But I think the next part is I'm doing this podcast tour. So that's really helping me to hone in on my messaging behind all of this. And I think a lot of it has to come back to freedom. So picking your audience and being okay with that. Knowing you're worthy of actually finding a niche within the niche and being these are the people I am best able to help, and everyone else will have a person for them and they'll find that person, but you just have to create the content to attract those types of clients. Mm-hmm. Did you have something to say? Cause I feel
yes, I really did. But I didn't want to interrupt, but so your brand, if I'm, I think the people, and I went through this as well, and I'm going through this now. Somebody had told me you need to create content that's so broad that you're capturing everybody. And so that's what I did, or that's what I tried. But I don't want to capture everybody. There's a very niche person that I'm looking for with certain pain points that I can help, because I can't help everybody. And none of my content talks about it. So I paused it because I was really trying to back into, let's revamp this. Let's really explain who I can help. And I really don't care about followers. I want to get to the pain points.
Yeah.
And then through that, maybe it goes viral. Who cares? Because I do know that people in my industry know me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at the loan officer and the person that's out on the streets, they have that broader audience that they can, like, when I look at a parking lot, I can help maybe one of those cars, but you can help every one of those cars. And so when you thought about building your personal brand that can transcend any market, how did you back into that? Did you sit down by yourself and say, I am building this brand to help this pain point? Or did you hire somebody to help you with that? What was that process for your rebuilding Theoni the Lender, not your daddy's lender brand?
So I think it came from frustration. A lot of my breakthroughs have this, I'm starting to realize, have this pattern. So it was being frustrated that I was the lender that helped everybody all the time. So I would set up multiple people. I would spend a lot of time setting people up on these home ownership roadmaps, I called them, and then they wouldn't use me, right? And then I didn't have a way of tracking them. So I was like, wait a second, I just did all this work, so many hours of my life. And then when I had my first kid, I was like, I can't do that anymore. Like, I can't do it for no return. I'm just going to spend time away from my family for nothing. Like, that makes no sense. So for me, the Not Your Daddy's Lender came out of frustration of, I don't want people who will use me, like, and abuse me, not use me for loans, but just to use me and leave. And so I used to work for a bank, so I know what old mindset, there's a difference between old mindset and old people. And there's a lot of old people in our industry, but there's also a lot of old mindset. And I think that's the problem.
There's actually young people with an old mindset
exactly.
as well.
Yes. It doesn't, again, back to the pain point. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't matter where you fit in age-wise. But I wanted to be that Not Your Daddy's Lender is like, I'm very new school to doing things. Like, I'm almost a lawyer. Tell me everything you need, but I need a commitment from you up front that we're in this for the long run. And I haven't had an issue telling people, like, if I don't get you to closing, I don't get paid. So I'm 100% committed to you, but I need the same commitment from you. And people love that because it's so honest. Like, they don't get that from anyone. Everyone else is like, it's a Saturday and I'm just going to drop everything and I'll send you a pre-approval. And I'm like, I need a commitment. I've been burned way too many times. And like, your daddy's
everybody's afraid of that. It's like realtors are afraid to give the buyer's broker agreement,
right?
Because they're like,
and they have it. I'm like, I wish I had it.
Right? If you had out like this, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sit down and we're going to talk about this agreement. But I think lenders are afraid to say the same thing, and I hear it all the time. I answered the call on the weekend. I worked all weekend, but did you have the conversation that asked for the commitment?
Right.
That is an insane level of confidence. There's a guy that was on my podcast two podcasts ago. His name's Eddie. And he said something that resonated with me because I spend a lot of time with Spanish-speaking clients. I don't speak Spanish, but I hire people that speak Spanish. And it's a good demographic for us because I'm Hispanic and I want to make sure that, people are finding the right lender to help them. Because I think when you're having to translate information, people will get just like, there's a lot of Spanish-speaking lenders that are like 200 basis points in commission because they know that they're going to accept whatever they're given as long as they can get into a house. And so it's a big passion of mine. But he said something because I just always assumed that if you're Spanish-speaking, you're going to go on this journey that it's going to take you maybe 2 years to get this one client into a house and that you've accepted that. And he pointed this out. He said, if you're the pilot of the plane, you can't go work on the plane. Mm-hmm. If you spend all your time working on the plane, then you're not going to be a good pilot of the plane. And you have to stay the pilot of the plane. And it blew my mind because that's what you were trying to do in earlier career is be the pilot of the plane and get no commitment on top of that, right? Mm-hmm. Like you'd fix the plane, you're doing all this stuff, and then nobody really cares.
Yeah.
And if you could stay in the front of the plane and just do what you really do and what you want to do and what you got into this business to do, and then be selective of the pain point client that you really know you can assist.
Yeah.
Breakthrough moment for you. And so I love that. But so let's go back to it. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it like going back to your brand. So once you identified what you were good at and what you wanted to do, how did you come up with you're very witty. And how did you come up with all of it?
Me and ChatGPT go to school. No, I'm just kidding.
How long have you been using ChatGPT?
Since it really came out, because my husband, we're in the same industry kind of sort of. And so when all this new tech stuff comes out, like we're just up in arms. We're like, we have to learn it. And so since it really started being a thing, ChatGPT has known everything, like about my business, about my branding, about
You've
everything.
created it.
Yes.
You've taught it.
Yep. And now I can plug it.
You can plug it.
Which is really cool.
Smart.
Yeah.
So smart.
And it takes time. Like, and people are always like, oh, it doesn't sound like me. And I'm like, well, I know, because it doesn't know who you are. And sometimes you don't even know who you are and what you want to be on social yet. So
I keep uploading content to it and say, this is how I talk. This is how I talk.
By the way, yes, that's genius. That's great. And so the not your daddy side of things actually came from, I was working with Ginger Bell at one point. She's a big, mortgage marketing person in our space. And I was on a Zoom call with her, and it was like random that she said this, but she was like, you're kind of just like not your grandpa's lender out there. She was like talking about the team, or something that I did was like not your grandpa's style of lending. And I was like, oh, wait a second. Yes. And then the word daddy makes people really uncomfortable. So
that's why what's the podcast? What is the
Call
podcast?
Her Daddy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I think of when you say that. And I'm like, but there's a juxtaposition over that, because there's two different types of, and
that's what I'm trying to do.
And
bring the raunchiness.
You knew how to get my attention with it. It's so good.
It's so funny, because the word daddy will trigger the e-course that I have. So if anybody wants to get it, and I get guys in my DMs, because they'll never comment. Like, men will never comment on publicly.
Go to the DM,
They'll go to my DMs and be like, daddy, LOL. Or like, it always has to be something after daddy. It can't just be like daddy.
I love that.
And never in caps. I'm always like, put it all in caps, and nobody ever
I love
does.
that he laughed at that. He just
kind of
chuckled. Yes, it's so funny. So okay, a couple things. How do you help people today? You have an e-course. Is the e-course, I saw it on your link tree. How does it help? Who is it directed to?
Really just anybody who's looking in our real estate industry, but also insurance agents have gotten it too.
But it's specific to helping B2B
TikTok.
How to get on TikTok.
Yes.
Okay, so if you are listening and you are interested in learning what we just talked about, and you want an e-course on it, Theoni on her Instagram has a link tree that you can find it. And so if you are not already following her, find her and follow her, not only on Instagram, but where she's posting the TikTok that's going to make you feel like you are her best friend is on TikTok. So be sure you follow her there. I'm stoked. I'm excited about this weekend.
Yeah, me too.
I'm stoked that you're here. Are you speaking at all?
No.
Gosh, I wish you were.
I know.
I wish you were.
I feel like a part of me, I just feel this way, is going to be like Neil and Trevor just being like, okay, Theoni, since you like Off the Cusp so much, come on up. And
I think you should.
And I'm ready.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to know, if that happens, I'm ready. That is my best. That is my best and highest.
They
use.
would be wise to do this, because you were so good the last time that, if I remember anything, and we heard from like Tony Hawk and some really great people, where I learned the most was from you. And so I really appreciate that you, at the drop of the hat, got off a plane where you woke up at 3 a.m., your time.
I'm also a mom, so like this,
and you're a mom.
You don't sleep anymore.
Yeah, well, still, I mean, just to come in and be fire was amazing. Thank you for being on the podcast.
I appreciate
today.
this.
I'm excited about it.
I'm so stoked. Thank you for giving the platform.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Anytime. Thank you.